Welcome to Lesson 6 with the Alberta Curriculum Tutor. In this lesson, we're going to be learning how to add and subtract integers, and firstly, we'll also be discussing what an integer is. So first of all, what exactly is an integer? Well, an integer is basically a classification of numbers. So a number that is an integer must be a non-decimal number, and it can be positive, neutral, which would be 0, or negative. So basically, these are the criteria that make up an integer. And most likely, you've worked with the positive and neutral integers before, but you may not have worked so much with the negative integers. And that's what we will be introducing and talking about in this lesson. So let's just do some examples of what an integer might be. So 5 would be an integer, -4 would be an integer, 0 would be an integer. All these numbers are non-decimal numbers, and they're either positive, negative, or neutral. Now, what might not be an integer? For example, 5.5. This would not be an integer because it is a decimal number. Or let's say half. Half is basically also 0.5, which would make half a decimal number. And it's really just not a whole number. So here we have some examples of numbers that are integers, numbers that are not integers. Okay, in order to explain how to add and subtract integers, I'm going to use a number line to explain this. And we're going to start off with a very simple one that you all know how to do, and you're going to think that this is a little bit crazy. Okay, so in order to explain how to add and subtract integers, I'm going to use a number line. And we're going to start off with a very simple problem. We're going to do 4 plus 2. Figure out what that equals. Now, I'm just going to add in that these are positive numbers. And we all know this, but I just want to make it clear so that when we do negatives, it's also clear. So we have +4 plus +2. So, how do we do this? Well, we start off here at +4, and then we're going to add +2. So we're going to move right 2 on the number line. 1, 2. Therefore, we see that 6 is the answer. So +4 plus +2 equals +6. So how about if we were to do similar thing, but with negative numbers? So we had -4 plus -2. What would that equal? Well, we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to do this more on the left-hand side of the number line where the negatives are. So we're going to start at -4. And we're going to add -2 to it. So what does this exactly mean we're doing? Well, we're basically, if we have -4 of something, we're adding 2 negatives to that. So we're going to go left on the number line, because when you're adding a negative plus a negative, you're just adding more negatives together. And here we get -6 because I've gone 1, 2 to the left on the number line. So, when we had two positives, which were like terms in a way, because two positives are alike, you get more positives. And when you have two negatives, you get more negatives. Now, to also help out, you could think of this in terms of counters. So, let's say you had positive 4 counters. And then you want to add 2 more positive 2 counters to that. Well, now you have 6 positive counters. Now, let's try this with negatives. You have 4 negative counters. And you want to add, so you're putting in 2 more negative counters. 1, 2. Now you have 6 negative counters. So negative 4 plus negative 2 equals negative 6. Okay, so now we're going to do a little subtraction. So we're going to start off with 6 minus 4. And remember that, just to clarify, it's a positive 6 minus a positive 4. So let's do this on the number line. We're going to start at 6, and then we're going to take away 4. So we're going to move left 4 spaces on the number line. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And here we get 2. So positive 6 minus positive 4 equals positive 2. And we can quickly demonstrate this with counters. So if we have 6 positive counters, and we take away 4 of them, because a subtraction is the same as saying taking away. So I'm going to group these. Here we have 4, and take them away. Now we're left with 2 positive counters. So let's do an example like this with negative numbers. So negative 6 minus negative 4 equals what? So we're going to do the same thing. We're at negative 6 here, but now we're going to take away 4 negatives. And last time when we took away 4 positives, we moved left. But with negatives, you can think of it as being slightly opposite. So from negative 6, we have 6 negatives, we need to take away 4 negatives. So therefore, we're going to move right on the number line this time. 1, 2, 3, 4. And here we end up with negative 2. And let's do this with counters again. So let's say we have 6 negative counters. And we want to take away 4 negatives. And remember that a subtraction is the same as saying taking away. So we're going to take away 4 negatives, and we're left with 2 negatives. Okay, so now I'm going to show you like a quick little rule for adding and subtracting integers, a little cheat sheet, you can think of it. So when we add a positive, we go right on a number line, so towards the positive side. When we subtract a positive, we go left on the number line. So we go more negative when we subtract a positive. Now, if we add a negative, we go left on the number line. And if we subtract a negative, we're going to go right on the number line. So, basically, what I've shown you here is that adding a positive is the same as subtracting a negative. And subtracting a positive is the same as adding a negative. And you can use this rule very easily when you're doing adding and subtracting integers. And it's called the tick-tick rule. So, first, before we move on, just quickly make sure that you remember these, and then take a picture, whatever you need, then press play again, and you're going to use the tick method. Okay, so I'm going to write out a few examples, and I'll show you how to use this tick method. So, positive 5 plus positive 3, positive 5 minus positive 3. Then we're going to have negative 5 plus negative 3 and negative 5 minus negative 3. So, with the tick-tick method, you basically can change subtraction signs to addition signs, or addition signs to subtraction signs. And so it really depends on what you're doing if you use the tick-tick method, but I'll show you how to do it if you want. So we'll start with positive 5 plus positive 3. That's pretty easy to do by yourself. You don't really need to use the tick-tick method. In fact, you'd be making it harder. We know clearly that 5 plus 3 is 8. But if you wanted to use the tick-tick method, what you're going to do is you can change these two signs. So you have to tick as such both signs. So this is an addition, I can make it a subtraction, and this is an addition, I'll make that a subtraction. And here, all I'm saying is that positive 5 plus positive 3 is the same as positive 5 minus negative 3. Now, next one. Positive 5 minus positive 3. Well, that's again a pretty standard one. We know that 5 minus 3 is 2. But let's say we want to use the tick-tick method. Well, we can make this a positive and this a negative. So now I'm saying positive 5 plus negative 3 is the same as 5 minus 3. And in both cases, you get 2. Next one, negative 5 plus negative 3. Well, if I wanted, I could use the tick-tick. So a negative and a positive. So now I'm saying negative 5 minus positive 3. And for some people, this might be an easier way to envision the problem. For some people, this might be a little more difficult. So, if we go back to how it originally was, negative 5 plus negative 3, well, they're both negatives. So you're adding sort of like terms. So it'll be very similar to adding positive 5 plus positive 3, except now it's opposite because we have they're negative. So it'll be negative 8. But you could also think of it as negative 5 minus positive 3. And if you remember from before that whenever you minus a positive, they're going to go left on the number line or towards more negative. So negative 5, if you envision a number line in your head and you go left 3 spaces, you're going to get negative 8. And then negative 5 minus negative 3. So we can tick, so that means we make the subtraction a plus, subtraction a plus. Negative 5 plus positive 3. Well, when we add a positive, we're going to go right on the number line. So let's go right 3 spaces from negative 5, and you get -2. So I know this might seem quite confusing right now. You're like, does that really make sense? Well, my suggestion is that you just sleep on it for a little while. Just play around with it in your head, and you'll soon see how this comes to work, and you'll soon see that it actually does make sense. Right now you're thinking, no, it probably doesn't. It doesn't make much sense. But you'll soon see how it does. And this is a very important concept. It's really quite hard to do many other concepts in mathematics in the higher levels if you can't get this concept. I just like to tell people of a quick mistake that a lot of people do. So often people will tick the front symbol. When you're ticking, you can only do it between the middle symbols. So for example, if I had -5 minus -3, I can't go like this. Because +5 plus -3 is the same as 2. And that's not the same as this. So be careful when you're ticking to only tick the middle. Congratulations on finishing Lesson 6 with Alberta Curriculum Tutor. In this lesson we covered what is an integer and how to add and subtract integers.
If you have a question or a math problem, such as a word problem, relating to today's lesson, please leave it in the comments and I will try and respond to you with an answer.